1972. Two astronauts climbed into a small metal capsule and prepared to return to Earth. The Apollo 17 crew included the first scientists to set foot on the moon, and the astronauts spent more than 3 days exploring. In a competition between the United States and the Soviet Union, known as the space race, humanity proved that we could walk on the moon.
Rachel and Steve are also with us, and Holly has joined us as well. So they're going to help us out with some of the tests. Today we're going to do an activity called Touchdown. And Touchdown is an engineering design challenge activity that has to do with landing. So why landing? Why is that a big deal? Well, because this year, 2019, marks the 50th anniversary since the first landing of people on the moon. We're going to test all kinds of different pieces and parts of rockets and spacecraft and equipment to make sure that it does the job it needs to do.
From the end of that tip of this one's round. So what's it going to take? 8 months. You got to have a good what? Just a bit. I hadn't heard that one. That's absolutely right. And they're going to screen out all that stuff. And it's going to take 8 months to get there, and you can't turn around and come back. You have to go all the way to Mars, let the thing land, do what you need, and come back.
To our ribbon cutting. Thank you all for being here. It's going to be an exciting 3 days, and we're so excited about NASA. Thank you to the NASA folks over here in the corner. We love having them to Lebanon, and we would love to have them come back too. So we'll be short and sweet today, so if you want to go ahead now and cut the ribbon.
That'd be great.
Okay.
And if it looks like I'm not doing a very good job, they told me just to pretend at first. It's been a very exciting period leading up to this. We're going to have a wonderful experience, like Rob said. Is everybody ready? Yeah! All right, count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Woo!
I'm Gail Rose. I happen to be privileged to be the president of the Board of Trustees of the library. And on behalf of the board, the staff, the city, the community, and every patron that we have in our library, it is my privilege to congratulate Julie on her leadership and on the amazing programming that has developed over the time that we have been privileged to have her as our director. And we have a certificate of appreciation that is presented to Julie Sandvich in recognition of her 30 years of dedicated service to improve the quality of life in our community. Thank you.
How's everybody doing? Have fun today so far? Yeah. So I'm the Vice Mayor of Lebanon, Ohio. Or Lebanon, can you get me? Yeah. And I'm here to read a proclamation. Today is Dr. Don Thomas Day. And on behalf of... So who out there wants to grow up and be an astronaut? So those kids who raised their hands, you guys want to help me present this to Dr. Tom? All right, come on up here. You can stand up here with me. The adults can come too if you want. All right. We got a good. Very great. So, on behalf of Lebanon City Council, we're super honored. We're blessed to have one of America's greatest minds, as well as greatest explorers, with us today. So, I'll read this proclamation. May it be proclaimed. Whereas Lebanon wishes to recognize astronaut Dr. Don Thomas, PhD, for his long and distinguished service to his country, and whereas Dr. Thomas flew 4 shuttle missions and orbited the Earth 692 times, and whereas he served his country from July 1991 to July 2007, and whereas he shared today his experiences and knowledge with the Lebanon students and citizens as part of the Lebanon Public Library's celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 lunar landing. Now, therefore, I am not Amy Brewer, I'm Mark Messer, but on behalf of her, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Lebanon and the state of Ohio, I do hereby proclaim May 10th, 2019 as Dr. Thomas Day. Wow.
Thank you, everybody. Let me tell you, I just turned 64 a few days ago. I've never had anything like this in my 64 years of planet Earth. So this is the very first Don Thomas Day that I've ever had a proclamation made, and this is really special. Thank you so much. From my heart. Thank you. Wow. Welcome, everybody. And as you heard, my name is Don Thomas. I had the amazing opportunity to fly on 4 space shuttle missions. 3 of those were on Space Shuttle Columbia. 1 was on Space Shuttle Discovery. And I've spent a total of 44 days. And as you heard, I went around the Earth 692 times. So I had an amazing opportunity to see planet Earth during those flights. And I first got interested in being an astronaut when I was only 6 years old. I watched the first American go into space at my elementary school up in Cleveland, where I grew up, and at that moment I knew I wanted to be an astronaut. The next year, John Glenn, the first American to orbit the Earth, you know, I watched his launch, and that reinforced I want to be an astronaut. You know, 7 years later, Neil Armstrong, you guys ever hear of him? Landed on the moon, and I was 14 years old. I wanted to do that, so I always wanted to be an astronaut. And people ask, like, how is it that Ohio has so many astronauts, more than any other state? And because we had incredible role models. This is Neil Armstrong here. So let me tell you, on my 3rd mission, I was launching aboard Space Shuttle Columbia, and I wrote Neil Armstrong a letter just saying I'm one of the Ohio astronauts. I told him that he was one of my heroes as a young boy growing up, and I was going to be launching on the space shuttle in a few months, and I invited him to come down to the launch. He wrote back very simply, "I'll be there." And I was like, wow, Neil Armstrong's coming to my launch. I was so excited about that. And the day before launch at the Kennedy Space Center, I got a call from NASA management. And they said, Mr. Armstrong wanted to meet with me. And it was like, wow, that's incredible. So I got to spend an hour one-on-one. That's Neil Armstrong, his wife Carol, then me, and then on the far right-hand side, that's my wife Simone. And we got to spend about an hour together. And I tell you, I flew in space 4 times. That was an incredible experience. if you ask me what's the coolest thing in your life that happened, I would say, oh, I got to spend an hour with Neil Armstrong. No kidding, I mean, that's from my heart. He was my childhood hero, and to have that opportunity was just incredible. Stay here. So that's one picture. I have a second picture of me and Neil Armstrong. You may not know who's who, so let me help you. That's me right there and Neil Armstrong. There I am about to crawl in the hatch, and before I do, these two gentlemen in the white suits will help us put on a parachute harness. They check out all of our equipment, then I get on my hands and knees, crawl on that white board, we get inside. We're sitting in seats similar to what you're sitting in tonight, but because the shuttle is tilted upright for launch, we're actually laying down on our backs for liftoff. And they strap us in. We've got shoulder harnesses and seat belts. For our young students in here, it's like being in a car seat when you were young. They strap us in good and tight because there's a lot of shaking and vibration. You don't want to bounce out of your seat and hurt yourself, damage any equipment, so they get us strapped in good and tight. Once we're all strapped in, they close and seal that side hatch, and then everybody moves away from us about 3.5 miles. And when you realize why they just moved away from you 3.5 miles, that's another good moment to get butterflies in your stomach. They're getting out of what we call the blast zone. If you're farther than 3.5 miles and anything bad should happen, you're probably okay. If you're any closer, could be an issue. But we know the risks. I mean, the astronauts, we're in there, we're ready to go, we're excited about the mission. And it's very quiet for us up until 6 seconds before liftoff. At that point, the 3 engines at the tail of the shuttle start coming up to full power. 6 seconds later, we light our 2 big white solid rocket boosters. And the instant they light, boom, immediately you take off. And laying on my back in my seat, I hear the roar of the engines. I can feel all the shaking and vibration. And right at that moment of liftoff, I always felt this push in my back. And it felt to me as if somebody had their hand right in the middle of my back, and they were just shoving me up into the sky. And that's what the shuttle's doing, literally shoving us, tossing us up in the air. In space, there's no up or down. Wherever your head is pointed in space, that direction is up. Wherever your feet is pointed, that's down. So Nancy's looking at Kevin saying, hey Kevin, you're upside down. Kevin's looking right back at her saying, no, you're upside down. If you want to sit up on the ceiling, you can easily do that. And you look at everybody else in the room and think they're upside down there. So you're never upside down, it's everybody else. That tells you just a little something about the ego of an astronaut, right? It's not me, it's you. We sleep on the wall in sleeping bags. This is Kevin sleeping on the wall here. Here we had a double decker, so somebody else was sleeping up above him. We wear dark eye shades because we go around the Earth every hour and a half. You get 45 minutes of daylight, 45 minutes of nighttime. If you don't want the sun coming in your eyes all the time, you need to wear the eye shades. He's got his arms crossed like this because here on Earth with gravity, if you totally relax, your arms will fall to your side. In space, if you totally relax, the arms tend to come up and float right there. So imagine you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes, and the first thing you see are 2 hands floating in front of your face. Our astronauts are not that brave, so we took our arms in like you see here. And the real reason we do it, you see a lot of cables and switches off to the side. You don't want your arm in the middle of the night floating over there, hitting a switch, bumping a cable, doing some damage. This is our little food station. All of our food is freeze-dried food. It comes in small plastic packages. We add hot water. Once we get to space, the food softens up, and after a few minutes, it's ready to eat. I always say the space food is okay. It's not delicious. I would never go to a restaurant that serves space food. So don't go up there for the fine cuisine, but the view out the window is incredible. Here's Nancy Curry, and she was a big exercise fanatic. And we had a bicycle we'd ride every day up there. We could pedal the bike and get your leg muscles working, get your heart muscle working. And I came down in the middeck one day, and Nancy's upside down, pedaling the bike with her arms, just giving her upper body a workout there. And it looks so unusual, something you could only do in space, right? So I just want to share with you a few pictures looking out the window. Here I got a map in my hand looking out the back window, and this is what I get to see out the back. That just gives you a little piece of what the Earth looks like from 200 miles. All the blue in this image is the Pacific Ocean. The blue, yeah, it's the Pacific Ocean. The white areas are puffy clouds. This little peninsula coming down is Baja, California. Here's the sunrise from space. Because we go around the Earth every hour and a half, we see 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every 24-hour day. from space, what you're looking at here is our atmosphere. And from space, it looks paper thin. And you realize what a thin layer of air that's protecting us here on planet Earth. On a nice sunny day here in Lebanon, you look up at that blue sky and it looks like it goes on forever and ever. From space, we see it at John and it looks paper thin. And every astronaut will come back from space and they'll tell you about how thin this atmosphere is protecting us on planet Earth and the need to take better care of our planet. One of my favorite parts of the world was out over Egypt. So at the top here is the Mediterranean Sea. This is the Nile Delta and the Nile River cutting through Egypt. The Nile River is about a quarter of a mile across or so. What you're looking at here is maybe a 5-mile wide path where they do irrigation along the river. This big bend here, this is where the Valley of the Kings is, King Tut, right there. This is the Red Sea and the Suez Canal cutting through there. This was always one of my favorite parts of the world. I visited Egypt when I was in college back in 1980. We went to the Valley of the Kings, and the air is perfectly clear, low humidity here. You got brown desert, you got beautiful blue waters of the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. It doesn't show up in this picture. And then the bright green of the Nile Delta is just spectacular to see from space. And it takes us about 55 minutes to fall back to Earth. We would end up landing on a runway right back at the Kennedy Space Center, touching down, deploying a drag parachute, rolling to a stop at the end of the runway, and then we just sit and wait for them to open the hatch so we can get out. After we get out, they let us do what we call a walk around so we can take a look at the vehicle. It's one of the only times that astronauts get to get up close and see the outside of the shuttle. Usually it's in the orbiter processing facility, those hangars, it's being worked on. It's one of the only opportunities when you see it, like the full shuttle here. You put your hand up near these tiles, you'll feel the heat coming off. This is 2 hours after we landed or so. And here today's Space Shuttle discoveries at the Air and Space Museum down in Washington, D.C. If you ever get a chance, drive down there. It's 6 hours away or so from you, and you get to see Space Shuttle discovery. John Glenn flew on this space shuttle. I flew on one of my missions. It flew 39 times to space, more than any other space shuttle. I live about an hour and a half from this, so I like to go down there, take friends and family when they visit the Washington area. I take them down there. And what I say is, that's my space shuttle. It's not mine at all, but that's the way I feel when I see it. And with that, I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity. And I want to thank Rob. Where's Rob here? Over here. Over here. Rob's the one who invited me down here today. Give him a round of